All right, let's hit the field.
It is the final Friday of 2023, and we're wrapping up a week of Yankees news and rumors. We say goodbye to Isiah Kiner-Falefa and Estevan Florial. Plus, we look forward to a healthy Jasson Dominguez, who could be back sooner than anticipated. And we'll talk Shane Bieber, Josh Hader, and Jordan Hicks. Let's wrap up another trip around the sun. This is NYY Recaps.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
New York City.
Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. A little Friday afternoon special here at the end of the 2023 calendar. Major League Baseball season actually wrapped up on November 1st when the Texas Rangers shut out the Diamondbacks to win the World Series in 5 games. That was 58 days ago. We are now 57 days until the Yankees suit up for their first spring training game in late February. So congratulations, we have made it more than halfway through the offseason. So far, one major move for the Yankees, that was Juan Soto, but it does appear like there are going to be more moves to come. But so far, there have been more subtractions than additions. Let's talk about them. Luis Severino obviously gone. Kyle Higashioka and Michael King both gone as part of the Juan Soto trade. And today we have to officially pour one out for the Hawaiian Hustle. Isiah Kiner-Falefa came over as part of the Gary Sanchez and Josh Donaldson trade. And former top prospect Estevan Florial, both of them left the Yankees this week. Round of applause for those guys for time served on these brutal Yankees teams. IKF is somebody I defended in 2022 because I think fans expected more from him than he was capable of. I never saw him as anything more than a stopgap shortstop, maybe a potential utility guy. I do feel like the Yankees misused him. The guy won a Gold Glove at third base, but I get it. He didn't hit enough to be a traditional corner infielder. So you put him at shortstop. Maybe he becomes a light-hitting defensive whiz shortstop. That didn't work out. Didn't play good enough defense. This year he spent more time in the outfield than anywhere else. Obviously doesn't hit enough to be an outfielder. His OPS is 660 for his career. His on-base percentage is 314. But I've always liked the way he plays the game. He definitely hustles. And the nickname, the Hawaiian Hustle, is definitely apropos, and I think that the Blue Jays are getting a good clubhouse guy, a nice little player for their team. But like I said, the Yankees misused him, and he had no business in the outfield this year. But I respect his willingness to learn a new position in a contract year. A lot of guys would have told him to take a hike. You want me to play the outfield? I've never played the outfield. In my contract year, this is my chance to get big bucks. Put me at third base, where I won a Gold Glove. Instead, they ran Donaldson out there. So, I was surprised that the Jays gave him as much as they did. He was making $6 million with the Yankees. He got a raise to $7.5 million over the next 2 years, so $15 million total. And congrats to IKF. I hope you have a strong year. Looking forward to seeing you again with the Jays.
You son of a bitch.
TP Joseph says 7.5 AAV. Jeez. Yeah, that's a lot for him. As for Estevan Florial, he's a guy the Yankees obviously had high hopes for. I've always liked his athleticism. He's got that Bernie Williams style gait in the outfield. He runs really well. He's a big kid. But they traded him for some pitching depth, some much-needed pitching depth after they emptied the pitching coffers for Juan Soto. Cody Morris from the Guardians, really nothing more than a depth piece, but he has worked with Matt Blake in the past. That could have some benefit. And look, the Guardians need some offense, so he's going to get a shot to replicate the damage he did in AAA this year when he smoked 28 home runs in 409 at-bats. Given the stadium the Yankees play in and how it's constructed for left-handed hitters, I was surprised that he didn't get more of an extended opportunity this year. Somebody said that I was trashing him on the way out by saying he never took off. I wasn't trashing him at all. I actually said that he showed me something in September. I thought I was very comfortable. If you had run Estevan Florial out there as your center fielder until Dominguez came back, and we'll get to Dominguez in a minute, I would have been comfortable with that because he showed me good defense. He didn't hit for any power, but his swing looked good. He hit one off the left field wall at a game I was at. So, I do think there's something in there for Estevan Florial, and I wish him luck with the Guardians. I saw a few commenters that were extremely displeased with the trade. One guy predicted that Florial is going to put up an 8-WAR season, to which I say, put down the crack pipe. Florial, he may end up being a useful major league player, but the facts are that he struck out 144 times in 409 at-bats, and strikeouts don't go down as you move from the minor leagues to the major leagues. So I anticipate he's going to be a 180, 190 strikeout guy over the course of a full season. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we've seen enough of the strikeouts lately. But best of luck to Estevan Florial. Tommy Higgs says, the fact that we got something for Flo is actually insane.
What it is. It's what it is.
I agree, and it is what it is. Last year, any team could have had him for nothing because the Yankees DFA'd him, and he didn't end up being on the 40-man roster until Jasson Dominguez got hurt in September. Then they brought him up and gave him a shot. So let's talk a little bit about Jasson because it does sound like he could be moving back to New York sooner than anticipated. Before we get to that, Tom Chipperfield says, I'd like to never hear Josh Donaldson's name again. Let's close the book on that one. So Aaron Boone, with some positive news, some rare positive news on the injury front from the Yankees, said that Jasson Dominguez is healing rather quickly. He said that when the Yankees get to spring training, he's going to look, quote, a lot like a regular player, and that he could be back, quote, sooner rather than later. I take that as extremely encouraging. Now, Jasson Dominguez is still 20 years old. He won't be 21 till February. He's still younger than Volpe was when Volpe made his debut. So, what we got last year was a bonus. Surgery during the offseason that's going to cost him some of his preparation in terms of throwing. But he's healing nicely. 20 years old is now 20 years ago for me. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that your body heals and recovers at a much faster rate than when you're in your late 20s or even in your 30s. And the expectation was that he would be back, maybe July or August. But the more I think about it, I don't think late May or early June is out of the question. I went back and did some research. Didi Gregorius had Tommy John surgery on October 15th, 2018, after he tore his UCL making a throw during the ALDS against the Red Sox. He made it back the following season on June 7th, and that was seen as kind of a quick recovery. He played in 81 games. He was a shortstop where you have to throw a lot more balls to first than you have to throw from the outfield. So what were his numbers like offensively before and after the surgery? Well, before the surgery, he had an 829 OPS in 2018, and then afterwards, 718 OPS in 2019. So he definitely had a dip in production when he came back. That was his last year with the Yankees. 827 OPS in 2020 with the Phillies, and then he kind of took a nosedive for his career offensively. But it's safe to say that his offensive numbers took a hit when coming back. By the way, Didi was 28 years old when he had that surgery. Bryce Harper made headlines because he made it back really quickly this year. He had Tommy John surgery last year on November 23rd, so around Thanksgiving, well after the season was over, and he made his debut this year on May 2nd. That's unbelievable. So he had his surgery about a month later than Didi and returned about a month earlier. So he shaved 2 months off the recovery, if I'm doing my math correctly. It's not very difficult math, but I'm not a math guy. He ended up regaining most of his power by the end of the season. He hit some very big home runs again for the Phillies in the playoffs. And overall, he batted .293 with 21 home runs and a .900 OPS. Slight dip, but you're talking about MVP-type numbers. and he's a 2-time MVP. So, where will Dominguez land in terms of recovery time? I think it's going to be closer to Harper than it was to Didi Gregorius, but being that he didn't get much time at AAA in the first place, they're going to want to get him swinging the bat a little bit. I think he could be ready by mid-May, but I think he's going to get a couple of weeks in AAA, probably be optioned right out of the gate, and as soon as he gets hot, then you'll see him in center field. Probably early June. I'm going to go out on a limb and say June 1st, we're going to start seeing some real talk of Jasson Dominguez being called up. And I'd like to think that by July, he will be hitting like the alien that we know and love. StatCast data supported this kid, and what we saw from the eye test matched the data. Takes close pitches, hits the ball very hard, very calm and relaxed. There's this movie, some of you have probably seen it, it's called Air. It's about the designing of the Air Jordan shoe. And we see this scene where Matt Damon is scouting Michael Jordan, and he notices how relaxed Michael was on the court. You can see it when somebody's loose, and you can see it when somebody's tight. Dominguez has always been loose. In spring training, he was comfortable and tearing the cover off the ball, and from the moment he got called up, he was nice and loose and relaxed. I think he's going to do fantastic. As a young Dominican player who's somewhat in the mold of Juan Soto as a hitter in terms of excellent command of the strike zone, I think it's going to be huge for those two guys to play next to each other, to possibly hit next to each other in the lineup if Dominguez becomes the leadoff man, as many people suspect he will. Remember, he was hitting third. I think he hit sixth in his first game, and then from there on, he was hitting third. I think he could end up as the leadoff man. A lot of value in him as the leadoff man because he's a switch hitter and because he sees a lot of pitches. If you're a switch hitter, you don't have to change up where you hit him on any given day based on who's pitching. You just put him up there in the leadoff spot, let him take pitches, let him get pitches to hit in front of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And I think that's going to be an outstanding top of the order. And playing alongside of Juan Soto, who's undoubtedly one of his heroes, is going to have a huge impact on Dominguez this year. All right, let's take a couple of comments here. Dr. Skin says, tight. And then we got a super chat from Lori C. says, Happy New Year, Derek. Looking forward to another great year of NYY Recaps. Me too. Sam G says, Soto mentoring Dominguez. I can see that. And look, if you just get 1 year out of Juan Soto, you want to maximize his impact on the team, right? And there's what you can do offensively, and obviously he's not a great defensive player, but what you're going to look for from him is clubhouse presence, teaching some of the younger guys, because he's still 25 years old. He's a younger guy himself, but teaching some of these guys coming up, how he's put in his preparation. Word Lifer says on base percentage, skills, and speed. What's not to like at the top? Frankie says, may 2024 be the first year Derek calls a title. That'd be great. All right. So a lot of people in here want to talk about Shane Bieber. He is next up. You notice we have the topics highlighted now. I wanted to make that a little bit easier. By the way, shout out to Frankie who had his wisdom teeth out. Hope you're feeling okay, Frankie. I remember when I had mine out. That was rough, but the medicine was good. So I've seen a lot of comments about Shane Bieber lately in the Yankees online chatter. The Guardians were abysmal this year. They went 76 and 86, which is 6 games worse than the also abysmal Yankees. And they just lost their Hall of Fame manager, Terry Francona, who retired. So it makes sense as they begin to rebuild the team under new management that they would possibly move one of their bigger trade assets in Shane Bieber, who won the 2020 Cy Young Award and has been a pretty good pitcher over his career. But here's the thing. He missed a lot of time this year with elbow inflammation, those are 2 words that make me think Tommy John surgery is on the way as a precursor, because you're putting pressure on the elbow if you're getting elbow inflammation. Only a matter of time before something snaps. And I don't necessarily love the trend lines with Shane Bieber. Now, there are things to like, and I'm definitely interested at the right price. So when you look at his StatCast data as we take a look at this, this year was kind of a mixed bag. Fastball is well below average in terms of velocity, but it's still effective. The breaking stuff is still well above average too. And he's in the 80th percentile of walk percentage, so he throws strikes. I like his downhill angle. He gets a ton of ground balls. He's in the 75th percentile of the league in that category. Gets a lot of extension. That could be one of the reasons the elbow hurts. But he used to be a guy that got a ton of strikeouts, and those are declining fast. His strikeout percentage has dropped from being in the top of the league, 41.1% in 2020 during the COVID season, 33% the following year, 25% the year after that, and now down to 20.1% in 2023. And if you look at his expected ERA, it's gone from 2.62 in 2020 to 3.73 the following season in 21, slightly back to 3.51 in 2022, and then shot way up to 4.83 this year. Now, part of that was probably the elbow, but to me, these are alarming trends. And I say, if you can get him for a reasonable price, you do it, because he's got a pedigree, he throws innings, he knows how to pitch, and there's some positives there. I like the ground ball rate. I like that he throws strikes. He's pitching for a contract. He's trying to, get to that free agent contract. But to me, he's a guy who's a high risk of an elbow injury. I just see the warning signs there. Highest I would go on Shane Bieber is probably a couple of mid-level prospects, maybe some cash considerations, and I don't think that's enough to get it done. I would much rather have Dylan Cease, who I see has a lot more upside, Corbin Burns. Even though he's not going to sign an extension, he can be your number 2 behind Garrett Cole and really be that guy who, helps you power through the postseason. And then Jordan Montgomery, still out there as a free agent, and we all know that I am the president of Gumby Nation, so I hope there is some truth to those rumors. But I've heard mixed reviews on whether or not Jordan Montgomery would be willing to come back to the Yankees. Ben Green says Corbin and Frankie. Interesting. Frankie Montas, another guy that being considered, but again, shoulder injuries worry me. and Hitskin says Montas pitched for a contract. Yeah, he threw a third of an inning. All right, let's take some comments on Shane Bieber. Dr. Anarchy says, I'd be fine trading Everson Pereira for Bieber. Straight up, given that the Yankees now have a little bit of outfield depth, maybe. But I would want them to eat some of that contract so I could go out and get somebody else just in case he breaks, which he might. Dominic and Lenny says, Trevor Bauer, with a couple of question marks. It's a possibility. I haven't seen many teams interested in him. He obviously had a decent year in Japan this year. I think there's more of a likelihood they would go with somebody like a Shota Imanaga or a Jordan Montgomery before they would go to Bauer. But if those guys get scooped up, then I could definitely see Bauer becoming an option. Let's see here. Joe says Blake Snell to the Yankees. I've talked ad nauseum about Blake Snell, and he's got some of the same warning signs that other pitchers that have had. David Price is a good example. And if you're hearing me repeat this, sorry, but for the people who are not daily watchers of this channel, my opinion on Blake Snell is that he throws way too many pitches. 5-6 innings, he's at 100 pitches every time, and they're high-stress pitches, and he walks a lot of guys. And to me, that's a recipe for somebody who's going to break down. We saw that with David Price. And then, once Patrick Corbin, another guy. Once you start to lose a little bit off that fastball, become a little bit more hittable, you start to give up the 3-run home runs because you're walking guys. So I'm not super high on Blake Snell long term. Word Lifer says Snell is a trap, and I agree with Word Lifer.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And Mark says he won the Cy Young Award. He did. He did win the Cy Young. You're not wrong. But we're talking about a long-term contract. You don't want to pay for past performance. He won 2 Cy Young Awards. But you don't want to pay for past performance. You want to project into the future. And there's a lot more than the statistics on Baseball Reference when you're thinking about handing out a big contract. To me, he's probably going to go to a team that's willing to overpay a little bit. To me, that's the San Francisco Giants. They've been having trouble getting people to come to San Francisco. They need pitching. I could see him going there. Division rival. So, comment from Aaron L. says, if we sign Snell, we need the mega bullpen anyway. He would turn into an albatross contract. Let's talk about that super bullpen. Been a lot of talk about this lately, and it has been done before. You can win that way. The Kansas City Royals in 2015 had 4 guys in their rotation with an ERA above 4, which is not ideal, not what you would think of for a world championship team. They only had 1 guy with more than 163 innings pitched, and that was Edison Volquez. But what they did have is a super bullpen. Greg Holland, Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis. I think they had Finnegan was up and young and picked up some big outs. So they were able to cut through the postseason with their great bullpen. And the Yankees may very well try and build a super bullpen, but you still need pitching depth in the rotation to get you through a 6-month season. You can't rely on a power bullpen every day because you're going to be behind in games. You're going to have injuries. And if you try and do that without the requisite pitching depth or inning eaters, guys are going to get hurt. And the bullpen is going to be ineffective come October. So, the Yankees do have some power arms in the bullpen already. Holmes had a 2.86 ERA. Ian Hamilton was, injured at times, but he had a 2.64 ERA. Loaizaga didn't pitch much, but he has a power arm. Hopefully he bounces back, although you can't really count on him. He's another guy, and he's a reason why this Yamamoto thing might be a blessing in disguise. Shorter, smaller guy with a power arm, very whip-like action on his arm, exactly what you see from Yamamoto. So, you see what happens when you have to generate that kind of leverage with your smaller stature. You start to break down, and Loaizaga has broken down quite a bit his whole career. Wandy Peralta was great. I believe he's still a free agent. I don't think anybody's picked him up yet. Maybe the Yankees pick him up. Keenan Middleton's still a free agent. But lately you've been hearing a lot of talk about Josh Hader and Jordan Hicks. Now, Josh Hader had an outstanding season, still just 29 years old, and you'll probably get a few more years out of him before he begins to decline. He's got a funky motion. He's all arms and legs. He's a hard-throwing lefty. 98, 99 miles an hour. He had a 1.28 ERA this year, struck out 85 hitters in 56 in the third innings, 1.101 whip, and 33 saves for the Padres. Now look, he's got kind of a slinging arm motion. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Sale and a little bit of Randy Johnson. 2 guys who have had, different types of careers. Chris Sale, obviously a starting pitcher for a long time, has broken down more in recent years. Randy Johnson had a very long career. It took him a long time to learn how to throw strikes, but he won 300 games. Obviously a Cy Young type pitcher. The fact that Hader doesn't have to put on all those innings as a starter should mean that, the slinging arm motion delivery gets a little more length. The funkiness of that delivery should help him. 5 years, $100+ million is what he's looking for. That's a lot for a closer. He's looking for the record. He wants to beat Edwin Diaz. I think I would do it. But you still got to get starting pitching. Now, I don't know if he's going to age well. I think he will. The fact that he doesn't throw more than 3 outs in a game is concerning. Definitely a 1-inning guy, but he's completely dominant. So I think he would be an awesome addition in the short term. And if you're going for it this year with Juan Soto, why not put the best team you can on the field? As for Jordan Hicks, he still has power stuff, and he's only 27 years old. What concerns me about Jordan Hicks is the amount of base runners. 1.355 whip, or walks and hits per innings pitched. That's not what you want out of a relief pitcher. You definitely want to get that down closer to 1.0, if not below. 3-9 record last year, a lot of decisions, and not great decisions, means 2 things. One, he was pitching in a lot of high leverage situations, so his team trusted him about, putting him in when the game's on the line, tied or slightly ahead. But the problem is he was 3-9, so he lost 75% of the time. That's not necessarily his fault. but doesn't look great on the stat card. He has a 100-plus mile-an-hour fastball. You'll see 101, maybe 102 at times. Got a good breaking ball. Sweeper. He had 12 saves, 81 strikeouts in 65 2/3 innings. Pitched with the Blue Jays to end the season. I think he has potential to be one of those guys that Matt Blake can unlock. Still just 27 years old. A lot of chance, a lot of time for him to put it together over the next few years and have an elite season before he begins to break down. So I feel good about Jordan Hicks. I would definitely look into that at the right price. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies.
I gotta get out of here!
Ernesto says we should put the best team on the field, and I agree. Chris Perez says they're not going to trade for 2 starting pitchers. Probably right. Thinks they'll sign Montas and trade for one of Bieber, Burns, or a Marlins pitcher. Marlins got some good arms. Anyway. And Angelo Siciliano says Yankees should get both Cease and Bieber. I don't know if they have the trade chips to get both of those guys, but I'm curious to see what they end up with. As I mentioned, we are now halfway through the offseason. Yankees will suit up for their first spring training game in 57 days, and I'm prepping Studio 2. We're going to do a lot of watch parties during the spring training, and then we'll do more watch parties during the season. Obviously, recaps after every game, with the possible exception of those West Coast late games. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful new year. As Frankie says, happy 2024, and I'll see ya when I see ya.